Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome James Siegal.
It's great to be back in New York. My whole family is from Brooklyn, and my favorite memories from childhood were playing on New York City playgrounds with my identical twin brother. Wherever we were, whatever we were doing, we would play until the sun went down. And I'm sure many of you have similar memories from your own childhood. And when you see kids running and jumping and hopping and skipping and climbing, it's easy to see the physical benefits of play. But play is so much more than that. And now, as the dad of 3 play experts, I see it more clearly. Play is how kids develop 21st century skills, like grit and determination. It's how they make friends, and it's how they explore their creativity and become adventurous. And play is the very essence of childhood. Could you even imagine what it would be like to have a childhood without play? But that's exactly what's happening on our watch. Kids today are playing less than any generation before them, and the idea of playing until the sun goes down has become a distant memory. As a result, kids are unhealthy, unhappy, and falling behind. That's why the work we do at KaBOOM is so urgent to me. 20 years ago, we built our first playground, and about an hour ago in Memphis, we put the finishing touches on our 2,700th playground that we've built in partnership with low-income communities all across the country, providing millions of kids with the opportunity to play. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to build a playground in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, a couple of blocks from where my own grandparents grew up. And a community that had once been a launch pad for new immigrant families seeking the American dream was now trapping families in a cycle of poverty. But I knew when we finished the playground that day in Crown Heights, from the smiles on the kids' faces, that we created yet another oasis of hope. An oasis where kids feel nurtured and valued and protected and loved. And I'm proud of the work we do. But it also leaves me feeling like there's so much more to be done. Because the fact of the matter is, kids deserve better than an oasis. What about the vast space in between the oases? When I think about my own kids, it's clear to me that they see the world as their playground. They'll play anywhere and everywhere. All it takes is a small prompt. But that's an unscientific sample of 3, so we asked the experts. We asked behavioral scientists from Ideas 42, what keeps kids from playing more? And they had 2 key insights for us. The first is that you could go through the whole day and not even think about play for your kids. So unlike nutrition, where every time you go to the grocery store, go out to eat, or open up the refrigerator at home, you're confronted with the choice between the healthy option and the unhealthy option. There are no natural moments during the day where you're forced to think, how should I be playing with my kids now? And then, even if you do think about it, all the little hassle factors get in the way. Think about what it takes to take your kids to the local playground. Do they have the right clothes on? Do you have the right supplies with you? Is there a safe route to get there? When you get there, is there a clean, accessible restroom that you can use when someone has an emergency? And all these little hassle factors add up and make it too easy for parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, and other caregivers to say, sorry, now's not the time to play. So if those are the barriers, we then asked Ideas 42, what can cities do to overcome these barriers? Why cities? You know better than anyone. Our nation's future is inextricably tied to the future of kids in cities. The numbers speak for themselves. Over 80% of the American population lives in urban areas, and contrary to popular belief, the percentage of kids is slightly higher. Of those kids, 22%, or 13.2 million, are growing up in poverty. And most key issues that relate to the ability to play, whether it's investment in infrastructure, policy, or programming, those decisions get made at the local level. So what did Ideas 42 tell us? They said that cities need to integrate play into the daily routine of kids. Low-income kids happen to spend almost 25% more time than their more affluent peers doing chores and running errands with the adults in their lives because there's no viable alternative for childcare. So yes, we need cities to create great playgrounds, great oases of play. But we also need great playable sidewalks and playable bus stops and even playable laundromats and everywhere that kids and families are spending an inordinate amount of time, and it's usually filled with moments of frustration. Play can transform those moments of frustration into moments of joy. And it's going to benefit all of us, just like the ADA benefits all of us, regardless of age or ability. And everyone could use a little more play in their lives. But the problem is, we're designing kids and families right out of cities. Urban living is becoming increasingly unaffordable for families. And in city master plans, when budgets get tight, as they inevitably do, usually the first thing to get cut is kid-friendly amenities. And even in those cities that are making great strides when it comes to livability, increasing opportunities for walking and biking, even in those places, it tends not to benefit kids. I wouldn't want my daughters biking there, would you? So cities are at risk of becoming young adult playgrounds that families can't afford and that don't meet their needs. And cities are also at risk of not taking advantage of a huge competitive advantage of attracting and retaining families. More disposable income, a more stable tax base, and a more civically engaged population. But we have an opportunity to reimagine cities with kids in mind. Like bikeability and walkability, we call this playability, where we're making it as easy as possible for kids to get the play that they need to thrive. Because we shouldn't settle for sidewalks that don't work for kids and families. We shouldn't settle for bus stops that create frustration rather than joy. We shouldn't settle for public art that's beautiful to look at, but warns kids not to touch. And we certainly shouldn't settle for solutions that only benefit a privileged few. It's doable. In fact, it's already beginning to happen, with cities beginning to innovate to create kid-friendly public space where it's hard to tell where the sidewalk ends and the playground begins, where training wheels are welcome on the bike lanes, and where public art is clearly intended for play. But we need much, much more. Imagine what's possible in a short amount of time if cities have the public will and begin to innovate. Think about what's happened with biking over the last 10 or 15 years, where a handful of cities innovated with New York City in the lead, and now we've got hundreds of cities all across the country competing to be the most bikeable city. So it is doable. It's time to reimagine cities with kids in mind. It's time for cities to embrace playability. I believe that we can create a new generation of kids that knows what it's like to play until the sun goes down. And the best part about it is that they will be better off as a result. More active, more engaged, more creative, healthier, happier, and more successful. And whether you're an architect, a planner, a designer, an artist, it's up to all of us to ensure that all kids get the childhood they deserve, filled with play. Thank you.